Have you ever made a purchase and then shortly after buying it kind of regretted that you bought it? Maybe had a little buyer's remorse, wish you hadn't bought that. Maybe you paid too much for it, or maybe you didn't like it as much as you thought you did, or something like that. Well, earlier this week, Silas and I were at the grocery store, and I had that exact thing happen. We were going through the aisles and buying different things that we needed at home, and I saw a cup that I really liked. And I thought, well, man, that'll be a cool cup. That'll look good in my office. So I went ahead and bought it. It was actually this cup right here. I thought it would be a nice cup. It was big. It looked like it would hold a large amount of drink. It was stylish. I thought it was cool. So we bought it and we checked out. And I got home and I was really excited. I showed Candy the cup. And I said, look at this cup I bought. I thought it was really neat. Maybe I'll get you one if you like it. And she said, I can't believe you bought a $17 cup. And I was kind of confused and I didn't really understand why she thought I bought a $17 cup. I said, that's not a $17 cup. It was maybe $5 or $6. And she said, no, that's a Tervis. Tervis didn't mean a whole lot to me. I didn't even know what she was talking about. I said, what do you mean a Tervis? She said, that's the name of the cup. It's a Tervis. It's very expensive. I said, I didn't buy a $17 cup. So we went back and forth a few times, and finally I got the receipt out. And sure enough, it was $16.99. She was right. See, when I saw that cup, I thought, wow, that looks good. That'll be nice to have. That's a nice cup. I want it. What I failed to do, what I didn't do, was consider the cost. I didn't consider how much it was going to cost me, what the asking price was. I just saw the cup and I wanted it, so I bought it. See, Christianity is kind of like that. In Luke chapter 14, Jesus teaches about the cost of discipleship. See, Jesus had a bunch of people with him. He had a multitude following him, great crowds accompanying him. And as they were going, Jesus stops. I don't know what happened. The text doesn't say, but something happens to make Jesus stop and turn to the crowd and begin to teach about the cost of discipleship. Look at what he says in Luke chapter 14, starting in verse 26. If anyone comes to me and does not hate his own father and mother, wife and children, and brother and sisters, yes, even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Something happened in that crowd. Maybe they were saying, well, we'll follow Jesus everywhere. We'll never leave him. We're gonna stay with Jesus no matter what happens. And Jesus stops him and says, listen, if you want to follow me, I've got to be first in your life. What Jesus was saying there was not you actually have to hate your family. He said everything in your life has to come second to being a disciple of mine. Christians today have that same responsibility. If we're going to follow Jesus, we've got to count the cost. We've got to be willing to put everything in our life second to being a disciple. Let's continue on in our text. Verse 28, it says this. For which of you, desiring to build a tower, does not first sit down and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, when he has laid a foundation and is not able to finish, all who see it begin to mock him, saying, this man began to build and was not able to finish. If we're going to make that decision to be a disciple of Christ, a follower of him, and I hope we are, and I hope we continue to make that decision every day, we've got to count the cost. We've got to realize that there's a price to be paid for following Jesus, and that price is putting him first and everything else in our life second. We may not realize it, but whether or not we choose to decide to follow Jesus, we're going to give everything we have. In Mark chapter 8, verse 36, the Bible says this, for what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and forfeit his soul? If we decide that we don't want to follow Jesus because the cost is too expensive by putting him first, and we decide to chase after the things of the world, the fleeting pleasures of the world, we can obtain those. We can gain the entire world, the money, the fame, the power. We can gain all those things. But the Bible says it's of no profit to do that at the expense of your soul. Because if we chase those things, and we don't chase Jesus, and we don't put him first, we put our entire soul in jeopardy. We've got to be willing to count the cost, and we've got to be willing to follow Jesus. I hope this has been beneficial to you.